All right, I'll call the meeting to order. This is our annual meeting of the public meeting for the Community Preservation Committee, where we discuss projects that are going to be considered for action at the annual town meeting, which is April 12th. We have one project this year. We have two articles, Part A and Part B of an article. But one project that's been brought before us this year, and that's to be discussed tonight. This is the chance for public input from all the townspeople. We make a point of publicizing this every year because and putting it on Area 58 because we want to make sure everyone has a chance to see what it is that's being discussed, what it is that's being considered, and even if they're not here tonight, potentially come to a meeting, come to town meeting, and have the ability to ask intelligent questions. So we've got a quorum of the committee here tonight. I'm going to actually skip our old business and move directly to the habitat proposal, and we'll discuss it in view of the fact that. I should mention that the whole committee is here, with the exception of Fran Mello, who is she's phoned in, so she's on my iPhone. So she's listening in on this whole thing. And Fran, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. So we have one article. As of a month or so ago, it was Article 9. Whether it stays Article 9 or not, who knows? But before I get into that, I want to mention that there's another article on the town warrant which transfers the care and custody of 11 Green Street to the Select Board. And I mentioned to Elaine Weston, the Assistant Town Administrator, that needed to be on the warrant before the CPC article came up, because that needs to happen. If that doesn't happen, then the CPC article becomes moot. I think it's a pretty straightforward article, and my understanding is that it's once the select board gets a hold of it, they're going to put out an RFP for acquisition of the property, and as I understand it, Habitat intends to bid for it. Hopefully it's going to be in their favor. So this article is an article from Habitat for Humanity. They've requested from the Community Preservation Committee $125,000. That's entirely for affordable housing. It was listed as affordable housing and historic preservation, and we deem it to be more affordable housing than historic preservation. And we're excited for the town to actually see an affordable housing project come before us. We've tried a few other things. We actually had an affordable housing habitat project back in 2008 or 2009, I think it was, on Mazzilli Drive, which was, I think, a great success. And we're happy to have any affordable housing project come into us. As I said, we worked with various other avenues to try to find affordable projects, and they're just not that simple to come up with. So, that said, I'd asked Jim Middleton, the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity in Greater Plymouth, to come and give us a presentation on the project and answer any of our questions. Jim?
Great. Thank you very much. Should I sit so I'm closer to the microphone?
Please. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And, we are Habitat for Humanity of Greater Plymouth, but we're actually really of Greater Carver. We started right at the almost 25 years ago, right across the street at the community church. We've been headquartered somewhere on Main Street ever since then. We're now at 160 North Main Street, and we have the Restore up there. Not only have we built the house at Mazzilli Drive, but we've also done a lot of fix-ups and repairs over the years. Our great gentleman who was the head of our repair crew for many years, Alan Hanford, is a resident of Carver, and he had to retire because he was 80 years old and COVID came. Otherwise, he and the crew would still be out there trying to help people. I know you're all familiar with the project, but we're really excited about it. It's a very nice, structurally sound home that is in possession of the properties in possession of the town of Carver at this point. And it really would be a wonderful project. There's a real shortage of enough affordable housing. The cost of housing is going up, which helps everybody who's at the higher end of that scale. But for people to get started, and in particular, young families to get started, and even in the veteran community, that's a problem to get enough to get into a home in the first place. So that's what Habitat's trying to do. We try to we do it all with almost all with volunteers and donations of various kinds. So with this house, we've already had a chance to take a good look at it, and we're excited about the possibilities of doing it. You know, we know there's some things a lot of things we'll need to do. We haven't really been able to totally evaluate it because, as you know, we don't yet have total access to it. We're just hoping that everything goes along according to a plan, and that can happen after the RFP, after town meeting. But having looked at it, and by the way, for years I looked at it. I've been with Habitat for about 10 years, and our offices for 8 of those 10 years were right across Route 58 from where this house is. And when I would cut through across there, I saw this house, and I thought, what a nice old house. And I wonder why nobody's maintaining it. The yard got more overgrown, the trees took some damage, that kind of thing. And I kept thinking, what a nice home, and too bad we can't get a family in there. And now it looks like, hopefully that project will come together and that will happen. And as I said, it's all done with volunteers, many from the community. And so I'm just excited about it. We've had enough of a chance to put some pretty serious numbers together. Just a little more history about our engagement with the veteran community. We just finished building 3 houses in Plymouth, Long Pond Road, that 2 of those 3 houses, which are all new construction, have gone to veterans. And they both happen to be women who have families and are now able to have a home of their own and have that base in the community. So we're excited to continue that work and engagement with the veteran community, and hopefully that all will work out. That in due time, a young veteran and their family will be in this house. So anyway, that's kind of a background on the project. We do this frequently. We have done many major renovations of houses. This will be an extensive renovation, thoroughly redoing insulation, reconfiguring the downstairs and the upstairs to create the 3 bedrooms that we want to create, modernizing the plumbing, the heating, the electrical systems in the house. We haven't totally evaluated the existing septic system, but there's a good chance that will need to be either seriously upgraded or replaced. So that whole combination of things is what's in the proposal to renovate the house, and we think it will all cover it, and we appreciate the consideration of the community preservation to help fund this if this all goes through. So happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
I have a couple of points that I want to make. First of all, as opposed to the Mazzilli Drive property, which was strictly affordable housing for any family that needed assistance, this is being earmarked for a veteran. So it's actually a different take and a different tack than what the town has done in the past. I think it's a great tack, and I applaud Dan Badger and Habitat for pulling this together. I also wanted to mention that in discussions I've had this week with Jim, the article is written up so that it includes costs for materials and materials only. It should be noted that the materials also include hard costs, which potentially include hiring a contractor to put in a new septic system and hiring a contractor to put in a new electrical system. So that I need it to be clear that that's included as allowable costs. I also had a discussion with our brand-new Director of Finance, and she has told me that unequivocally everything that we're spending money on has to have 3 bids. And that, but and I forgot to bring it with me because it's sitting on my desk at home. She gave me a listing of the various levels of what was required based on the dollar amount for procurement rules. So, I've talked to Jim about that. I think we can work that. I don't think there's a big problem with it, but I wanted to make sure that, we all understood that, she's adamant that we're going to follow the procurement rules. It's different from how we did the prior Habitat home, but that's also a few years ago. Under, let's see, a town accountant from 2 removed. So,
John Adams?
John Adams.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there'll be a problem in terms of doing that and talking with Jim. He seemed to think that, particularly since they have bite-sized portions in the proposal itself, it can be kept from having to go to the huge RFP where you have to, put out a, multi-page document and all that sort of stuff. So,
What?
Yep.
How come there's no reference to the veterans in this?
There is in the write-up afterwards.
In the write-up afterwards?
Right.
Where?
The informational summary on the top page,
Oh, okay,
top of
thank
the second page.
It is?
Next page. Next page is
It's last sentence of that.
Oh,
And that's
okay, good.
that's because
Sorry.
when I wrote it up, I didn't feel like I could specifically say that, but I did want to make sure it was included in the informational summary.
Yes.
Okay, good,
No, I think that's important.
yeah.
Right.
Matt, can I add? So just so that we don't get lost in the weeds with what this project is about, is the initial intention by what started as a small group, working group, and I'm glad to say became a collective effort with all of us, including input from the veteran community as well, and including other contractors and nonprofit groups in the area that have expressed interest in supporting this in an in-kind way as well, led me to believe that this as a whole would become a true community project, which seems appropriate based on the title of this committee. What I don't want to get lost in the weeds in is that there is a process, and where we are, in fact, and to your point about the order of the articles, is that there are still a couple more degrees of separation from where we are now to when we're actually able to transfer $1. And there's a process in place that is not a one where we'll be winging it and wishing and hoping this works out. We're very aware of all the steps that it takes to get to those degrees, and but this is the first step. But I think it's important for the public to know that the purpose of this project is actually one that is only part of a much larger wish of mine and others in the community, and that is to have a true model for affordable housing for Carver. And we are starting with a veteran project, as is my experience has been with veteran housing and veteran housing projects and things like this. And there are other programs that we can put together. So if it helps, this is not a one and done either in terms of what's possible for Carver. But this, I think, gets the conversation going. It's a very straightforward project, which is why I think we decided to do it this way, so that we get the conversation going as to what's possible for affordable housing, not just with veterans, but in general, and how we can improve different parts of the community, and how we can enhance housing for seniors, young families, individuals, and so on. So, and also to be clear, however this vote goes, because of my role in it, I will obviously be abstaining from the vote, as I think is appropriate. But obviously that is not a reflection of my support for or against the project. Obviously, I think I initially proposed this in concert with other affordable housing projects going on 2 years ago. So this has been a love-hate relationship with the process and my learning the process. But I appreciate people's patience with me in that regard and helping me along the way with the learning curve as how these things work with towns and not just with nonprofits. So, and lastly, I will say it's been to date a pleasure. I think I'm able to say friend and colleague in Jim Middleton and the rest of the staff at Habitat for their efforts in helping to guide this process as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee members have any questions?
I just have one. In keeping with the whole community theme, and I don't know whether the question is for you, Dan, or for Jim, would there be a place that people could sign up to volunteer and work on the project?
So,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of what Habitat does. It's all
Right.
volunteers, and we see a lot of great opportunities for all ages. We can't have people who are under 16, working with construction equipment.
Sure.
But there are chances to do meals for the other folks. When we can get control of the property, the first thing we want to do is clean it up. So there'll be a lot of nice volunteer opportunities, and then, of course, the construction.
So where would they find out? I
Oh,
figure you're on TV, you could tell.
Oh, okay,
people.
yeah. Habitat for Humanity, we have our website, which is hfhplymouth.org, and people can go to that. Or if they don't want to write it down tonight, they can just Google Habitat for Humanity Carver, and it will come up.
and there will be, I mentioned abstaining from this vote, but when it does come to get to the point where there's a volunteer drive, that's where I'll be tagging back in terms of driving that effort. And we will, in concert with the Veterans Networking Collaborative, serve as at least one of the social media hubs for signups.
Great.
In that regard. And that is automatically shared with Carver Helping Carver and Everything Carver and so forth. So,
Great, wonderful, thank
we
you.
will make sure we keep everybody in the loop and give everyone the opportunity to volunteer
That's an
as they will.
important piece, yeah.
Yes,
And-
absolutely.
If I can add, too, not only are we excited about this being putting a house back into service for those who have served, but we're excited because it's in the historic district. And I happen to live in a house built in the 1700s. Our construction supervisor lives in a house in Plymouth built in the 1700s. So we're kind of excited to refurbish something and put it back into good use. And it's just it's a nice neighborhood that and the other houses on the street are well kept, and we see this as a good opportunity to kind of build back something that hasn't had a chance to be maintained properly for a while.
Great.
And I'm just curious, is there a lottery or something that decides who
Yeah,
is to get that house?
It's actually a process that all of the habitats go through. On this kind of thing, we also go through the state to get the house on what they call the subsidized housing inventory. But as part of that process, we do applications. We do a couple of public information sessions to let potential applicants know about it. And definitely, we're going to need to network, because it's really important that people that might be qualified, income qualified for the house, do end up applying. So, once we go through all that, it's not strictly a lottery, but it's a blind process where we visit the folks who have applied, because with Habitat, unlike the strict lottery process where you just basically put everybody's name in a hat if they're income qualified and draw, we look at the current living situation of the people, whether it's overcrowded, substandard, whether they're paying too much, maybe an unsafe situation in a neighborhood where the family is. And they get extra points for that. So that's how we narrow it down to whomever will get selected.
And I should mention that way back when we did Mazzilli Drive, there was a desire by the committee to actually have a Carver resident get the property. And we were told by Housing and Community Development that was not possible. It had to be much more of a broad-based selection process. And so what the family we got in there was not Carver-based at that point, but then became Carver-based.
They are now.
And I also wanted to dovetail a little bit on what Mary was asking. In looking at the number of helpers at the Habitat home on Mazzilli Drive, it doesn't require that you be highly skilled. If you can swing a hammer, usually they can put you to work.
Great.
And I can tell you that in my job as a cabinet maker, I work with a guy who is the tip of the spear when it comes to the company that I work for. He is highly skilled. He volunteers for Habitat. So you might not work with somebody that knows how to swing a hammer, but you will work with somebody who might. Because he's the tip of the spear. So, you're going to work with the best people too.
Other questions?
I do.
Bonnie?
As in my understanding, the wording of the warrant article through the select board for this is that this is done for the purposes of veterans' affordable housing. But at our last meeting, it was told to us that only the first person is guaranteed to be a veteran, and then it's just open after that. How is that going to work, and is it going to conflict with the warrant article stating the specific purposes for veterans' affordable housing?
We'll work that through. Typically, it would be first offered to a veteran if the first veteran family that gets it, for some reason decides not to stay. And that almost never happens. In all the houses that we've built, the families who get that house stay in that house. And the reason primarily is they'll never get a better deal. So the way the wording goes, there's a deed rider that goes on, and it says that if that person wants to sell or move on, the house reverts back to, and it's really a partnership with the town and Habitat, and the state has a say in it. And it's priced at what the affordable price would be at that time, and the family would recover whatever money they've paid in towards the house, but they don't get the market appreciation, so they're not actually able to flip the house. In all the official documentation that goes through, I have to honestly say at this moment, I'm not able to guarantee that it can say that it will be in perpetuity for a veteran. It will be in perpetuity as an affordable home.
And, well, since it was brought up, let's say they do move out in a year and they sell the house and they collect the monies that they put into it. Who sets the selling price?
There's a resale price certificate that the state sets. The original price gets set by, it's based on area median income and a calculation of that to what people can afford. the 3 houses that we just transferred in Plymouth and one that we did in Kingston in the last couple of years were $170,000, which means that if you do that over 30 years, they're paying less than $500 a month towards their house. If that family decides they're moving on in X number of years, the state and we and the town would just look at that chart again to say, okay, if it was a $170,000 house then, it's now a $180,000 house, depending on what the area median income is at that time.
And, all right, so say they've worked and they paid $25,000 towards the cost, and then there's a market increase. Where does the difference in those funds go?
And actually, they wouldn't get them, it won't be sold at the market price. It would be sold at an affordable price.
Right.
Yeah, so they would get their $25,000 back, and then the new homeowner would buy it at something comparable to that $170,000 or $180,000. So there's no actual additional cash that comes into the transaction.
Well, there's a market appreciation at some point.
But the market, it doesn't apply because it's a restricted affordable house.
Right, but you mentioned market appreciation, in other words, that the price of the house isn't going to go down in
Right.
all likelihood.
I should have said inflation, I guess, would be a better word. I didn't mean to imply that somehow the price in the future is based on what the market is in the future. It's based on what the area median income would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one last question. Geez, I forget where I was going with it. So I'll just let it go.
It'll come back.
Anytime, feel free to ask me questions. And Bob knows how to get in contact with me through email, or my office is right up at 160 North Main Street.
Now, all right, so I remember. Now, this house was taken for tax taking.
Yes.
Right. Now, what happens if they aren't paying their mortgage and they fall in arrears, or the property does fall in arrears again? How does that work?
Habitat, part of our process is to try to make sure everybody takes care of the basics to be successful homeowners. So we collect escrow for taxes and insurance. On Mazzilli, there's a upgraded septic system, so we also collect funds to pay for that upgraded septic system. So what we're doing is really basically securing that house in terms of taxes and insurance and the future maintenance of the house. Because we have a vested interest in it too. We give a 0 interest mortgage on that, whatever we sell it for, which means for 30 years, we're really trying to help that person pay their mortgage and their taxes. And as I said, we've never run into that where we've had somebody go into default. We've had people through illness or unemployment go through periods of time where they struggle, but we work with them on that, and they are able to get back on their feet and maintain their home.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right, because the maintenance of the home is part of the big issue. In 15 years, they're going to need a roof.
Right.
$25,000, a very big expense.
Right.
And that's worked into escrow payments along with the taxes or the basic maintenance?
No, they own the home. They become homeowners, so it's their responsibility to look after the home. Although I will say that out of we have 13 homes that we've built over the years. We've helped 2 of them in the last 5 years get a new roof on their home. We've helped others with other maintenance issues that they've run into. And we're able to, because of our contacts, we're able to get things done a lot less expensively than on the market. We're fortunate that we have electricians and plumbers and septic system people that will help us out and help our homeowners out.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have one. You're asking for $125,000, but with inflation for building supplies, is that enough?
We raise money in addition to that. And we will be putting funds of our own into it. We're hopeful, and when you saw that pro forma that was in there, the budget, we often find that when we get going, especially for veterans, we've found that there are people who want to help us with materials and that sort of thing. So the 125, I hope, is an outside figure, and that if we don't spend all of that, whatever we don't spend, would stay with the committee. Yeah.
Based on building supplies
Oh,
recently,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the chances are, we're just into a project now that we're hoping and praying will stay in the budget.
Exactly.
But we're gonna learn, we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
The 3 houses we built in Plymouth, we purchased all the lumber and materials, windows and doors, just before COVID
There
started.
you go.
Yeah.
So we had it stockpiled and
And
we're ready.
there are lots of building material suppliers that will help an
Well, that will
organization like
cooperate with
Habitat.
us, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I know
So-
last year I had to put
No,
a
no,
bulkhead
it's-
onto my house, and instead of $500, it was $1,600.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
I will say with other projects I've been involved in, not just with construction projects, but with a project we recently supported last year that finished ahead of schedule. I am a big fan and believer of redundancy in fiscal vehicles, to make sure that there are always ways of covering things that, again, with that idea of community, I don't like it to be a tagline, I like it to be a methodology, so that we really have other sources, whether they be another fundraiser or a matching fund vehicle, whatever. We are a big part of, but again, only a part of this project. And, Habitat's taken on a big role themselves. I think even greater role than I think they're being modest with what effort that they are going to be putting in based on the methods that they use for executing these projects. So it's been a interesting journey in discovering how they go about doing their projects. At least this iteration of Habitat. So yeah.
Thank you.
Is it nationwide? Habitat?
Habitat is national and actually international. Mostly people think about building houses, but we repair houses, and I think it's 40 different countries around the world, including, we were active, I haven't been international, but Habitat International was active in Ukraine and Poland and some of the other countries around Ukraine, and I've just seen the information coming out that they're helping now with refugees. We're part of, I think there are 800 to 900 local affiliates throughout the country with Habitat. And the way it's set up, we're a local corporation. We're a charitable nonprofit corporation under the laws of Massachusetts. And I should mention too that one of our volunteers is here, one of our board members, Beth Davis, came in tonight too to be with me. But all of us are local, our board is local, all of our fundraising is local. Sometimes people think that the national organization passes out money to make things happen. It actually works the other way. We raise money and we pay some fees to help them carry out their work on a larger scale. So, and our towns are, I call it the Route 44 affiliate. We are Kingston, Plymouth, Carver, Middleborough, Lakeville, Plimpton, right across. So, as I said, we have built about 13 houses over the years, and renovated or repaired or did wheelchair ramps on countless others in the area.
Wonderful organization.
You know what? I work for the organization, and I kind of knew about it. I started 10 years ago. It's a wonderful group of people that just want to help other people. And you asked about community. It's community people trying to just, and it's fun, too. Once this gets going, you're going to see that it's a lot of fun for people to put their hands to something positive and work with other people in the community in a way that's very positive, and do something for a family that then that family has a base that they can, in turn, for generations with those kids that grow up in a house they never would have had otherwise, can do things for generations to come in the community.
How did it actually get its start again? I think it was mentioned, but.
How did it get started?
Yeah.
It started in rural Georgia in the 70s, early 70s. It was a church group, and the old-fashioned barn raising was the idea. And people would get together, and a family needed a house, they would just build a house. Because it was a Christian organization to start with, they had a mission, so they went to Africa and were trying to build houses in villages in Africa. And that has carried forward. A lot of people think about Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter helping build houses. When he finished his time as president, they were looking for something to do, and they actually lived in the same area in rural Georgia, and became engaged with Habitat. And from then on, they've built a house almost every year, or worked on a house. They're in their 90s now. He's in ill health, but a couple of years ago, he was still out banging nails. COVID had slowed all that stuff down, but if everything relaxes enough, I'm sure he'll be back out there this summer, helping to build a house.
Any other questions? All right, I think, sounds like we've got enough information to make up our minds.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time,
We
too, and
appreciate
letting me
you.
talk a little
Thank
bit
you.
about Habitat.
We appreciate your coming, and I would hope that you're going to be able to make it to the April 12th town meeting.
Yes.
I will grease the skid so that I make sure the town moderator knows that,
Yep.
that, you, if required, you will be allowed to speak.
Thank you.
Well, you don't live in Carver, do you?
I do not.
Okay.
We have two board members who do live in Carver, so I'll make sure that they're at town meeting. And
Yep.
can
Yeah, it's
speak.
just, if you're from out of town, I have to get permission from the,
I'll touch base with Donna. She might be able to make it.
Yeah. Great.
okay. Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
have some other business, so at this point, I'll close the public meeting, public portion of this meeting, and we'll just go with our regular meeting.
Okay.
And I'd say we're good with Area 58 at this point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.